we've been talking to Retreat about a few things that we'll try to see if we can recap some of them and put them on the table. Yeah, I know they just asked a question about in the genetic structure, are there some genes there that, some higher level genes, more like next level conduct genes that are dormant and that they come into activity as you reach higher conduct, right? Is that what your question is? And T, stop me, huh? Well, but I'd rather you answer. Don't know if they are there and dormant or if they are produced by filling up. Let's say that there's so many genes there, and the more, or there's a certain amount of, maybe not a number, but there's a certain capacity, and the less you use of the lower genes might cause higher genes to multiply. In other words, to become receptacle of higher programming and higher conduct. We don't know. One day we'll know, but they are either already there and dormant, waiting to be programmed, or they become, or they are reproduced because of not permitting reproduction at the lower level. You see, that would be, it's like a multiplication of genes because you're not permitting a multiplication of genes outside yourself. You're not letting the lower thoughts multiply. You are instead causing an opportunity for receptacles for higher thoughts.
Stop me if I'm wrong, but the genes have the ability to be converted to higher levels according to where the human is in that particular time. In other words, it isn't that there are, now I might be wrong, and I'm not contradicting what you said, but I'm adding maybe a different aspect to genes. It's just like you're trying to program genes to become this level type genes. Humans can't, they can program their genes to become a higher level, but they can never reach the level you are in until the time comes for them to do it. But it isn't a matter that they have dormant genes there. It's just that the genes are always in the process of being reprogrammed according to the individual who's doing the reprogramming. Can you all see all those expressions? In other words, it's just like you can clean house every 100 years. Okay, let's look back 50 years ago.
Are you saying that those genes translate differently?
Well,
as civilization grows higher?
Well, sure, they're being reprogrammed according to the circumstances that occur to that individual, the type of environment in what that individual programs to be in. And in other words, 50 years ago, when a washing machine probably was just an old wringer and it had no electric, let's say it was just a scrub board or something, and then somebody devised a mechanism that you plug it in and have a motor going, and the agitator goes back and forth, and then you have to take the clothes out and put them through a wringer. And it wasn't they couldn't jump from a scrub board to a fancy washing machine like they have now. They had to go through a process of programming. Now, it's the same way with a human can't jump from where they are now to a next level way of programming or thinking. It's a process that takes billions and billions and billions of years to do. And therefore, the potential is always there. It isn't exactly dormant genes.
What Steve's saying is you could even have like a limited number of genes, and as you change through generations and as civilization progresses, that you don't need any more. And this makes more sense than what I said a moment ago, because those will constantly receive new programming. Let's say that you had a gene, which I don't know if you do, but let's say you had a group of genes that because we talked about this a moment ago, that were primarily labeled reasoning or logic. And they had a certain word structure and a certain thought process structure. But we're trying to teach you a higher form of logic. That doesn't mean you need another gene out here. It means we're reprogramming the gene, the logic gene.
You're upgrading.
You see what we're saying?
You're according to what the knowledge that you have experienced or what you programmed into it. And
which is much better than, which is, I'm sure, more accurate than what I had said a moment ago. Because it makes sense that those genes are just changing their programming. They're still the same category, but that category totally changes its color and its vibration level as you progress. Well, another thought.
Okay. Talking about before we get too many.
Okay, there's something else I don't want to forget too that we talked about a moment ago. No, go ahead.
About this.
Oh, Herodes' question was, he couldn't see how Lucifer got into the next level if he still had the potential to go rotten. And we said that you're not going to get to a place where the door is locked behind you and you could never go backwards, or that you never had the capacity to go backwards. Now, it's true that the more you grow, the more you lock your own doors behind you and go back and check to see that the locks are firm, and you can continue to lock those doors. But there's no point at which there's a guarantee that you cannot fall. Let's take a human, for example, because you can always act within the conduct level of one kingdom level beneath you, if you choose. But you can't go back into the body of that kingdom level. But you can act that way. Let's take a human being who's trying to be, in this civilization right now, is trying to be very advanced. And he's getting calmer, he's getting more sensitive, he doesn't like to be around animal, harsh dogs and monkeys, so forth, and they become more aggressive. He doesn't mind seeing them across the street, doesn't mind seeing them on a leash in somebody else's hand. But when their vibrations are around him, it's very disturbing to him. But he still has the option, as other humans have chosen to exercise that option, to actually go live in the pen with them and act like they act and bark like they bark. And absolutely vibrate on the level of their vibration level. But he can't get back into a dog vehicle. But he can act like a dog. Now, you should be during the task that you're doing and changing these vehicles, you should have by now changed them over sufficiently that you in your own mind would be past the point of no return, of still acting as human. In other words, so that you would be like the human who would have made the choice, I just can't deal with the vibrations of lower individuals any longer. You should have the feeling, I can't deal with humans of vibrations of lower. That's why we say when you have out-of-craft tasks, that you have to fake it. You have to play act. You have to speak to them in one way so that they don't know the fact that you're really protecting yourself, that you're vibrating with knowledge on a different level altogether. You're only saying what they want to hear in order to keep things smooth as you have to deal with them. But anytime you get on their vibration in conversation or anything else, you're pulling yourself backward. And you're really endangering your forward motion. Now, we said on what Herodes said about Lucifer, that probably when he entered the class, he brought up that the class probably at the time Lucifer was in, they probably had, they were still learning how to improve classes. They're always learning how. They're going to learn a lot from this class. Well, if we do our job right, it's not that they have it down pat. They're always trying to improve it. Everybody in the next level is trying to move upward and to learn better ways and more advanced ways and how to improve things. And so it's doubtless that the time that Lucifer was in a class that there was a lot to be learned. And we're also sure that somebody up the chain of command, next level, certainly recognized that when Lucifer came into the class, or came into the next level, that he had the capacity still to be deceitful and to go in the wrong direction, should he be sent into a circumstance where he would be tempted to act as the lower kingdom level below him. And but they knew that if he chose that, they could still use it. If he didn't choose it, then the subjecting him to that would cause him to be stronger. If he chose to use it, they could even, if he had merited reaching the point in their eyes of having given him more opportunities than seemed right, and he continued to show habitually that he was not going to grow forward beyond that point. And believe it or not, the next level gives you many, many, many chances at all your lessons. Many, many, many chances. You almost have to convince them you are intent on not learning that lesson before they give you up. In other words, you give yourself up. And then they recognize the fact that you've given yourself up. You have proven to them that you're not going to go in that lesson. They've given you, in other words, if they know that it takes you that 10 times, 10 exposures to a certain lesson would scientifically take in your vehicle. That 10 is like 10 shots of a drug. Any doctor would know that 10 shots is more than enough to take, if it's going to take. Well, the next level knows that, and they probably give it 12. They go a little further so that there is no question. And then at that point, if you have proven that you are not going to respond positively, that they then will make a better use of you in another way. It's not like they're doing anything unfair to you because you have shown where you are drawing the line. Do you see what we're saying?
You're not fooling around with pins in the next level for me here. It's the big guys, you know. But there's one point that I wanted to say is, I don't know that you covered it, but if you did, stop me because I tried to listen, but I didn't catch it. And that was in regard to Lucifer, if he had the weakness, which we, according to legend, assume that it was with sensuality. And we said that when you have a weakness of some kind, whatever it is, that's what you would be faced with when you go to the next level. That's the kind of task you would probably have in order to strengthen yourself. Now let's say that the chief knew that Lucifer had a sensuality weakness, and so he gave him a task where he was involved with the children of the earth, and he was
to test it, strengthen
it. And Lucifer had two choices. He could have gone to the chief and said, "Chief, I'm afraid that I can't handle that task. I still feel like I'm drawn to these individuals. What can I do? How can you help me?" Which you do have the privilege of doing this. You don't have the privilege of going to the chief, but there would be somebody that you would be able to go to. In other words, I'm saying
there's always an older member that you can call upon to say to not be deceitful with before you give into the lower thing.
See, at the time Lucifer was there wasn't. I don't think there were very many older members there. The chief probably was one that was the big guy there, and nobody in between him. Now, the thing is, doesn't mean Lucifer was the only one. I'm just saying that that's probably how it was at that time. Now, Lucifer did not go to the chief and tell him that, and consequently he failed. And there's anything that you are troubled with, and I want to stress this, I know I just got your sense, but I want to stress this, anything you have to overcome, you will, if you do not overcome it by the time you get to the next level, then you will be faced with those circumstances until you overcome it. Therefore, why waste your classroom time at this time hanging on to things that you haven't overcome? Why don't you go ahead and get rid of it? then when you go to the next level, you will be ready to step into a task with no handicap.
Let me throw in there. What was the greater sin that Lucifer did? If this legend is true, what was the greater sin? Sex or deceit? Deceit. Because had he exposed instead of been deceitful his difficulty, nothing gives you a better grip on things than before you do something wrong to exposing it and asking for help. Even if tomorrow you have to expose it again and ask for help. But the first day you refuse to expose it and ask for help and instead give into it, that's the day you fall in that area. That's the day you essentially lose ground, considerable ground. But you don't lose ground when you realize a problem that you're having, a difficulty that you're having in a test area, and you seek help. Even if the one who can help you says, I'm very glad that you told me, and you're going to be stronger by this, and you say, well, you didn't give me any help. They did give you help. If you want to take the point of view that they didn't give you any help because you want an excuse to give into it, you can always label it as I got no help. All the help you needed, really, was exposing it and bringing it to their attention and seeing if they had something to offer you. And even if 30 minutes later, an hour later, the next day, whenever, you find yourself in the same predicament, you should do the same thing. But if you want to say, I didn't get any help last time I brought it to him, so I'll go ahead and give in to it. You were merely looking, hoping that they wouldn't have help for you, even though your little old brain would say you were looking for help, and they didn't get, so you blame them instead of blaming you for the fault. You'd rather blame the person who didn't give you the crutch you were looking for than develop your own crutch. Do you see what I'm saying? Aaron?
Like what Steve was talking about, is you'll overcome something when you get to this level. Based on Dan. It's like the autocrat has.
This doesn't mean you can take smoking in. This doesn't mean you can take a mistress in. This doesn't, there are whole lots of rules that are very elementary, You can't take spot. You can't take your favorite dog. There's a whole lot of rules that are too far behind.
Like if the task I have, the type of work that I do is something that I recognize genetic characteristics of this vehicle. It has an aptitude. Okay, well, when I'm doing some of the tasks like painting or building or something like that, I'd like to have the vehicle to start going and play tapes about, gosh, I can do this and this. I have stability here, so many things I can do. And I have to recognize, all right, I got to shut that off. Because I know that that's just those genes playing their human. That's the way the humans would carry out those.
Well, you know what I'd do? When those start, I'd say, sure, I can do those.
Yeah.
Is that what I want?
Yeah. And I say,
do I want that? Have I not yet grown to see through the value of that?
Right. That's what
So that would be stopping the program.
Right, that's just the example that you were giving, because I know, look, I just tell the vehicle, what are you going to do? Saw lumber for the next few years, and then they're going to build you a box and put you in it and stick you in a hole.
Who wants to do that for a bill? But you have the option to be the one to direct the humans to do it. Now, there's something else that I think a lot of you haven't overcome. And it isn't just one or two. I think just about all of them. And that's wanting praise. And you want a pat on your back.
Which is a form of affection, which is a form of sensuality, of needing some attention, needing some praise. It makes you feel something.
And what you want to do is grow to where you don't need it. And when Lynx comes back with correction, I hate to say criticism because we don't look like it. I'd like to say there's correction mostly. Take it on a level that is worthy of you, and that is, let's see, I added this column up wrong, and they're telling me to re-add the column again. You see what I'm saying? Because that's how we feel. Now, when we realize you need praise, you won't ever get it. Do you understand this? It's not from us. You might get it from your tax partner who might say, oh, you really did that good, but then that person is telling you that usually has a motive for doing it.
We don't like to feed the weakness. We don't like to feed your weakness.
Therefore, you've got to realize why we won't do it. Unless you write to us and say to us, well, we still won't feed it, but I mean, what you ought to do is write to us and say, I find it's very difficult for me to take criticism from me or correction from me. How can I do better? In other words, some of you might, like if you happen to be the fortunate one to talk to me on the telephone when we call, invariably, and we give you instructions, and then later we say, well, where did that come from? You know, when you didn't get it right. What did we say? Were we speaking foreign language or something like that? Well, you have a choice of being down and say, I can't do anything right. I know that Lisa didn't say that, but I'm going to take their word for it, but what's wrong with me that I can't get it right? You know, and, I guess I'm just not growing right. And next thing you know, you're walking out the door. And in other words, what you want to do is to know that things never come from a critical side, even though we might sound frustrated. Because believe it or not, we question ourselves when we give you something, because we wonder, what did we say to make you interpret it the way you put it down on paper? Because we want to converse with you in the right way so we can communicate. We don't want to say something to you and it means one thing to us and another thing to you. We want us to be on the same level. And once you begin to have that little bitty feeling of hurt or, I guess, resentment come in, it's going to make your way you receive things become lower and lower and lower. Can you understand this? It's just like it doesn't improve your interpretation of things. It lowers, and we become, in a sense, further and further apart, farther and further apart. In other words, there's a wider gap between us. And so, therefore, if you can receive us and block off any hurt or sensitive feelings or whatever it is when we're talking to you, and say, it only sounds that way, my vehicle is misinterpreting where this is coming from. And prevent yourself from building any genes that are detrimental to you. Can you all understand that? It's very, if you can answer that, this applies to anything. It's like opening the door to fill up that pocket that needs to be expelled when Bill was talking about that sensuality. In a sense, it can work in other ways. You can be hurt by things that they say, and before you know it, you can even be coward. And the next thing you know, you might feel like I can't do anything right. And believe it or not, you will not be able to do it.
That's right. You're building a storehouse there. And which is increasing the strength of that kind of thinking. If you could just learn to recognize the negative thoughts. I mean, if you could recognize the negativity in any thought or action. In other words, when you have a thought or an action, automatically examine it. Is it constructive or is it destructive? If it's less than constructive, I abhor it. If your teachers criticize you, or let's say that times your teachers have come on so strong in a lesson they were trying to help you with, you felt like your teachers really didn't see you in the right light. We've had trouble with this with some of your classmates at times. That they almost felt like, how could Links think that of me? Only to find out later, if they if they stayed on the right track long enough to find out that Links was not wrong. When Links was trying to help surface something in them and they didn't want to accept it, then they will turn and say, how could Links think such things of me? They're seeing me in such a bad light. They're taking the word of these other people for what I am. And they don't really know my heart. Is that constructive or is that destructive? You are not only bombarding Links' heads with your negative thoughts, you're building a nest of thinking less and less of your teachers, being less and less capable of being students with your teachers, because your respect is going down. You don't any longer think your teachers are seeing things the way they are. You think they're seeing them distorted. You're putting them on the same level as a human who takes other people's word for things and is capable of seeing you in a lower light. Not one of you could do anything, nothing as bad as would cause us to see you in a lower light. Because we don't want to see any of you in a lower light. We only want to see you in a higher light. I don't know if you can understand the importance of that statement. We are incapable of seeing you in a lower light. But you don't know it. But in other words, if we say something to you that makes you think we're seeing you in a lower light, something is deceiving you. You are choosing to interpret what we are seeing and where we're coming from. You're either choosing to continue to lie to yourself to protect yourself, because we don't want anything but the best for you. Therefore, we are not capable of seeing you in a lower light. Does not mean that we might not be capable of saying, Janoni, didn't you pick up that fork, when maybe Janoni didn't pick up that fork. But that's not seeing Janoni in a lower light. Do you see what we're saying? Maybe it was Parkoti who picked up the fork, and we thought that Janoni, we're not accusing Janoni of anything, saying, Janoni, how could you pick up that fork? It has nothing to do with higher or lower. It has to do with who did vital signs yesterday. Oh, we thought so-and-so was in the crack. In other words, it's insignificant as far as higher or lower. It's just getting the details of the fact. But higher or lower is seeing you in a lesser light than what you are. That we are not capable. We see you in a higher light than you see yourselves in. In all circumstances, we see you in a higher light than you see yourselves in. We give you credit for more than you give yourselves credit for. We give you credit for more potential than you give yourselves credit for. If you gave yourselves half the credit that we give to you, you would soar. Because so many of you still think you're so limited. And don't force yourself to expand your understanding and to get objective and to get above things. But the point that he was making is if you let negative thoughts about anything, your teachers, anything else, start to build a little nest, it will increase so that you have cut yourself off in that area. You have built a gate that then it's far more difficult to get rid of after you built it. Once you begin to have lack of respect and distrust has entered in, it's awfully hard because you have convinced your genes that respect is not there. You have programmed that in. Trust is not there. Respect is not there. You got to change that programming. And what have we said is easier to program? Negative. Much easier to program. Positive takes a great deal more effort. That is because when you grow positively, look what you become. I mean, you become something big and powerful and magnificent because of the effort that it took to become positive. It doesn't need to. The design of it didn't need to be that negativity had to come hard, because it's waste. It comes easy. I don't know if you can understand that.
I'd like to add one thing. Let's go back to what I mentioned a minute ago when we're talking to somebody on the phone and we give an instruction. And let's say later we find out that instruction wasn't received right. And so we talk to the individual and find out what happened, and what did we say to, or what didn't we say, and so begins to feel like they can't do anything wrong. And after that, or whatever it is that they begin to allow to come in, that is negative, let some kind of negative thoughts come in. And then the next time Lisa talks to them, and Lisa gives them another instruction, and again they don't get it right. And then some more negativism comes in. And in other words, people begin to get progressively worse, or that individual begins to get progressively worse in receiving instructions. Now, what is happening? Is that person going out of his mind, or is he allowing negative thoughts to block him from being able to receive anything from Lisa? That's the answer. Now, let's use Lucifer. Lucifer had a weakness, and immediately the next level, or the chief, whoever it was, realized he had a weakness. And the weakness was built up to, in other words, he tried to pretend like he was okay, but yet he resented having to give up. He blamed, if he had a weakness, he blamed the chief for his weakness, rather than facing that weakness in the face. Does that make sense? Can you understand that? Now, let's say that when we're talking to somebody and giving an instruction, what is that person's weakness if they aren't able to get the instruction right after they have been criticized? What is their weakness?
Criticism of the person.
That's right. They can't accept criticism. And it isn't the weakness that something's happened that they can't receive the instruction. It's the negativism that they bring into their brain or into their genes to make people, to make themselves feel like they can't do anything right, or I can't understand why I can't understand what Links is right telling me, or Links didn't really tell me that, or whatever it is that comes in, anything that's negative. So the thing of it is accepting the fact that you have been corrected, and then not allow it to affect you. In other words, you're taking Links on a different level than where Links is coming from. Can you all understand that? Did you understand that?
Mm-hmm.
And
The thing that he mentioned of saying, I can't understand why I can't, and so forth, you know, a lot of you probably even programmed into your genes when you were kids. Your parents probably tried to program into your genes of never accepting I can't for anything. Do you know what I mean? And this at a much higher level, you should still never accept a thought of I can't.
well, believe it or not, once you begin to do this, it's going to go off into other things that you do where it affects your judgment.
Right.
And it's a sign to us when this is happening that you are doing this. Just like it was a sign to the chief when Lucifer was doing what he was doing because of the way he was acting. In other words, it affects your performance. It affects your judgment. It affects you in just about every way, until before long you feel like you aren't anything to the class, and the outside world begins to look a little bit better to you until you go out there. Can you see what we're saying? So one little negative thought can grow into such a big thing that before long there's such a gap between you and your teachers, or next level, however you want to say it, so much so that you feel like you have no way to go but out the door. And so therefore you want to stop that negative thought. You want to reprogram your being, reprogram your genes, let's put it that way. Go to the source. And whenever you have a feeling of hurt or whatever it is, when Links corrects you, because we are doing it, not because we enjoy correcting you, but we want you to make it right. We want it to go into your computer for you to strive to do everything as perfectly right as possible. It's our task to do that. And now we could do it in a way that, you know, you do everything very good, and I'm sure you, we probably didn't say it right when we gave you the instructions. Even though we do take it into consideration that we could have said it right, but and that's why we wonder, well, are we speaking?
Never could have said it wrong.
I could have said it wrong. Are we speaking, you know, what kind of language are we speaking? We think we're speaking English, and we don't mean that to be sarcastic. You see what I'm saying? Because sometimes those instructions come out so different than what we've said. We wonder what kind. I know myself. I think I'm saying something now, and I would have to listen to the tape to realize.
Well, you wouldn't even know by listening to the tape. But what we don't know is what's computing in your genes. And we can't second guess it. We have to hope that you're somewhere close, percentage-wise, to getting some forward motion information, because we run into trouble all the time on instructions, thinking that we're giving them. And like he said, we said, well, I don't know how else I could say it, or what did you think I said? Because you still prove to us that we can't communicate easily. We still have to work very, very hard at trying to cover our bits, and we still don't cover it all the time.
But the most important thing is to stop the negative thoughts.
That's right. And nothing negative. Amen. Close the door.
I can't see what it is.